YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. And I lied. I said the final top 20 players of my top 100 list would be on Saturday, but here we are Friday night, and I got it right now. Went through 100 down to this point. There's a whole bunch of episodes on the channel. Go check them out if you missed them. We'll recap the other rankings, though. Top 20 players of the 2020 through 2021 season right here, right now. So based on regular season and playoffs and Super Bowl, it all comes into play here. So we're going to break it down. I make these every year. Really excited to reveal it. Hope you guys enjoy it. Follow that Twitter for constant NFL talk and updates. Check out that Sided app underneath me. There's a link in the description and comments for that. You vote on different NFL polls, debate, and win Amazon gift cards. Please subscribe. Full NFL offseason content. A lot more to come. So check it out. Here's our Twitter. A lot going on here. There's a little sneak peek of my landing spots for JJ Watt. You're going to have to go to the Twitter to see that. Again, it's a must follow here. And this page is free on our Patreon. Everybody can see this. I'll pin a link in the comments for this. It's just live, update these live projections for the cap space, who they can cut, how much they can save for every team pretty much. So, yeah, it's definitely a page worth keeping there for this offseason. But, yeah, we got to go through a lot of recaps here. Real quick, if you want to pause the video and kind of look through 100 through 81, but all these, so I don't have to sit here and list through every single one of them. These had their own videos as well, but you can go ahead and pause the video to check these out. That's 100 through 81. There is 80 through 61. Again, if you want to pause the video, you can scan through these. Next, we got 60 through 41. And then we have the last episode, which was 40 through 21. And now we're on to the top 20 here. Counting it down all the way to number 1. And again, this is based on the 2020 and 2021 season, or together, regular season, playoff, Super Bowl. You get the idea. So not just based off the regular season. The most important time of the year is the postseason. So to me, that matters. Number 20 is going to be Quinton Nelson. The highest ranked offensive lineman for me, the best guard in football, the best offensive lineman for me in football. You know what to expect from him, and another very dominant year, creating those truck-size holes for the Colts running backs there. So, yeah, he makes the job a lot easier for pretty much everybody there, not just the running backs, but, I felt like the unit became stronger once they added Quinton Nelson. So, just another dominant year for him. So, shouldn't really be much of a surprise. Number 19 is going to be Lavonte David, one of the best off-the-ball linebackers in football, played inside in the Buccaneers 3-4. Was super important for them in coverage. They used him in to blitz, to get after the quarterback as well quite a bit. So another consistent, dominant year. Whenever he's been healthy, he's been one of the best linebackers in football. And he used to be a 4-3 outside. Now he's 3-4 inside. So you see the versatility and just how talented he is. So another dominant year, a big reason the Buccaneers were able to finish the Super Bowl champions. Number 18, Dalvin Cook. I got the chef hat just for Dalvin Cook. Another dominant year running the ball. Dalvin Cook's all about the traits. If you just evaluate running back traits, Dalvin Cook probably sits at the top. The vision and how fast he hits that hole is ridiculous, and then what he can do after hitting the hole, we all know about that. So, yeah, definitely a home run hitting running back. So another guy, as long as he's healthy, absolutely dominant playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. He's at 18, and someone that's pretty damn similar, another running back, Alvin Kamara at 17. Pretty similar running backs. If we're talking running backs as who's the better runner, I give the slight edge to Dalvin Cook, both elite very much so. But yeah, we take away position rankings, ranking the top 100 players. Yeah, Alvin Kamara at 17, what he brings to the table in terms of his receiving ability, combining that with his running ability, pretty ridiculous. So an all-around playmaker here, and he comes in at 17. So we're getting into the big boys now. 16, Deshaun Watson, quarterback of the Texans. The only knock, I guess, if you had to kind of nitpick here, because wins kind of do matter for quarterbacks. So maybe that's what's keeping him outside the top 10. But, yeah, another great season for him, showing why he's one of the better quarterbacks in football. We'll see if he ends up on a different team. You guys know I've been saying he's probably going to end up with the Texans still, and I still think that. They don't want to trade him. But, yeah, I think what he can do with his legs and at a high level is kind of that bonus to his game. But it's crazy to think he's actually getting better, but he actually is. So hopefully they supply him with more talent, because he can be the number one. He can be number one on this list at any given time if that's the case. He really can. He's that good. So he's at 16. 15, Devin White, who really boosted his stock with the playoffs. I mean, I don't think there was a better player in the playoffs. I think Devin White was the MVP of the playoffs and Super Bowl, in my opinion. I mean, elite is almost an understatement of what he did in the playoff Super Bowl, the most important time of the year. Regular season was dominant as well. I think early on he struggled in coverage a little bit. The first half of the season he struggled in coverage, but was really good getting after the quarterback. Had his playmaking moments here and there in coverage still. Really good at stopping the run. You see him explode to the ball almost on the opposite side of the field, wherever he's at, exploding in the backfield. Then he started to pick the coverage up, as the season went on. Late season, that's kind of the Devin White coverage we expected. And then the playoffs, I mean, just every category just dominant. But on every phase, because, you definitely want to value pass rush more than anything on defense. He's involved in that. Even as an off-the-ball linebacker, he's involved in stopping the run. He's very instinctive, always got that first step towards the ball before the ball snapped, and end up being a playmaker in coverage, and a big reason why how the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. So Devin White ends up being number 15 on my top 100 based on this season, including the playoffs. 14, TJ Watt comes in at 14. So we're seeing how many great players there are, because TJ Watt was pretty close to the defensive MVP. At the halfway point around week 8, he was actually my pick for defensive MVP. Other players started to play a little better, so they kind of hopped over him. But yeah, when Bud Dupree got hurt, it seemed like TJ Watt wasn't playing as good, but still really good. The sack leader on the season. I thought he played a lot better first half of the year, but again, still was very good, very productive. And to me, he was, obviously a good prospect, but he was kind of a raw prospect. I'm like, thinking it might take a few years for him to really be like this, but how he's like this already is just fantastic. So a guy that can win defensive MVP at any time, give you a heads up right now. I really valued these elite corners this year. I really valued how they played, and we'll get to those guys. So those guys were actually more towards the top than maybe some people would have, but that's for me. 13, Stefon Diggs. How about the season he had? Led the NFL in receiving yards, receptions. So, yeah, he was absolutely dominant. We always talk about Stefon Diggs' footwork. Does anybody have better footwork than Stefon Diggs? I think somehow he actually took that to another level this year. Was able to get that many receptions, get that much separation because of that footwork and his home run ability downfield. You need a big play, going to dial up Diggs here. So, just absolutely dominant. Such a perfect fit in the Bills. And I hyped that up as soon as they traded him to the Bills, because he was dominant in Minnesota when they're a run first team, and you go to the Bills, or Josh Allen wants to air the ball out constantly. They want to pass the ball more than anybody. So it ended up being a perfect fit as expected. Ridiculous year for him. Comes in at 13. Number 12 is a Super Bowl MVP, Tom Brady. So he definitely helped himself, throughout the playoffs and winning the Super Bowl for sure. But really productive year. He threw for an insane amount of yards, insane amount of touchdowns. He still has that deep ball. There's no arm strength loss, nothing lost on that touch, downfield, perfect placement, dropping it in the breadbasket. That's still there. Maybe where he's gone down a little bit, sometimes under pressure or just decides, in crucial situations, he'll throw it up, at times into double coverage. So that was unlike Brady that we saw this year, maybe what's keeping him from the top 10. But yeah, he hasn't really. Usually, guys at that age start to lose, that downfield ball, and that's just definitely still there, like 100%. So, and goes on and wins the Super Bowl, wins Super Bowl MVP. So, another fantastic season for Tom Brady. He's number 12 on the list. Number 11 is going to be Tyreek Hill of the Chiefs. Really elevated his rank, I guess. Went up in the ranks for me because of the playoffs. Seeing how dominant he is, how much of a factor his speed can be, his quickness, and the game plan is for him. The Buccaneers pretty much shut him down, but they went in there, and their move was, let's keep a corner on him. Let's keep somebody over the top, basically a bracket, double coverage, and then make everyone else beat us. And that worked out for the Buccaneers. And it kind of just shows how good Tyreek Hill is. Even though he did drop a touchdown in that game, shows how much of a force he is. But yeah, really, touchdown machine this year. Really picked it up in the playoffs. It's just too much. You're looking at games like the Bills game, all these games, in the playoffs, and it's just like sometimes you're like, how do you stop this? The Buccaneers figured it out, but how do you stop this? He's just such an impact just by lining up out there. So he comes in at number 11. Now we're on the top 10, and a lot of these guys I already talked about feel like top 10 players, but there only can be 10. Mind-blowing. Can be 10 top 10 players. Returns to be Davante Adams, who was the best receiver on the year, in my opinion. Touchdown machine. Very productive as well. Just dominating from the outside in the slot. The teams want to make it. So, would stop Davante Adams. Let's make the rest of the Packers receivers beat us. And they really still can't stop Davante Adams. See, the Rams even had a problem with him there. But, yeah, it's pretty much him and Rodgers in the passing game. There's other receivers that make big plays, but Adams has to do a bit of carrying there from that receiver core. And, I think another guy that's taken his footwork and, his footwork and his routes to another level. But I think mainly what kind of goes unnoticed is almost, recognizing on the fly, where he needs to be. In zone coverage, you can't just decide pre-snap, I'm going to be in this spot, this is where I'm going to be. You can have an idea, but on the fly, mid-play, he's very good at figuring out where to put his body, in his zone coverage. So I think that's kind of what people don't talk about, where he's absolutely dominant. So he comes in at number 10, ridiculous year. Receivers lit up this top 100 list like never before because they're taking over, and there's a lot of good ones now. Number 9 is going to be another Packer, back-to-back, Jaire Alexander. Yeah, I really valued these elite corners this year because they played out of their mind. They played out of their minds. Offensive era, there's spread offenses out there, almost college-style playbooks out there. Heavy pass attack, and there's corners that are able to lock teams down on a consistent basis. Alexander's definitely one of those guys. I mean, just went against the best receiver every week, and had lockdown week after week. So absolutely ridiculous. Like, he had a season where it's a number 1 corner, and there's 2 corners ahead of him. They're all really close, but there's 2 corners ahead of him. So that shows how good these 3 elite corners were this year. It was absolutely ridiculous what they were able to do. People won't talk about it, but these are some of the best cornerback seasons in NFL history. That's my opinion. But how much harder it is to play corner today compared to even 3 years ago, ridiculous. So, and it might be, probably the hardest position to play after quarterback. So, ridiculous season for Alexander. Maybe let's split up. Barely anything split up those other corners. Those other corners were involved in, and Alexander can tackle. I think those ones were a little more efficient in coming up and tackling, making the big plays. But Alexander, you do see him fly out, make big plays. It's just a slight difference between these guys that had elite seasons. And, again, almost impossible what these guys did. So he comes in at 9. 8's going to be Derrick Henry, another phenomenal season for him, dominating as a running back. Putting the Titans had won games because of Tannehill in the passing game, but it starts with Derrick Henry. Everything's opened up with the run game. And, when they needed him, we need a big run right here. He went and did it. They need to beat the Colts the second time around, a must-win game. He went and just dominated them. The Ravens in the regular season, in overtime, shut them down. A top-tier run defensive team. So whenever you need that big run, that big play, that big moment, you need to ride on somebody's back. It was Derrick Henry. So, and it's another one of those guys where, let's stack the box because we know he's going to get the ball here, and you still can't stop it, and that kind of. It's crazy. It's crazy to watch sometimes. It's like one of those guys that gives you the goosebumps when you're watching them because everyone just knows what's happening and you just still can't do anything about it. The playoff game didn't go the way it wanted to for Derrick Henry and the team. So maybe that's what's preventing him from being higher, but he's at number 8. And I did think he was, because the awards are regular season. So rightfully so, I thought he was the offensive player of the year. I think that was the right decision, even though now I have Kelce ahead of him. Again, playoff, Super Bowl factor in maybe the playoffs for Kelce. But you see, Tyreek Hill might be more of the game plan, but Kelce is the guy who kind of just takes over. And another guy, what's coming. He's going to dominate the middle of the field. Exactly, know what's going to happen. He's beating cornerbacks, whether you press him or not, every week, and you still can't stop it. And, you see corners every week in the playoffs go against them that are just way more athletic, at least they're supposed to be, than him, way quicker, way faster, and they can't keep up with them. He's almost breaking their ankles in routes, and then he's a tough guy to bring down. How he's able to, get that much production as a tight end too in today's era. Keep up, not only keep up, but beat the top elite receivers as well. Ridiculous. Probably one of the better tight end seasons of all time there for Travis Kelce, and was a huge force for them in the playoffs. You talk about Tyreek Hill, so important, but who's going to control the middle of the field and, keep racking it up, keep the drives alive? It's Travis Kelce. So ridiculous performance from him. He's at number 7 or number 6. Going to be Xavier Howard, the corner of the Dolphins. Like I said, these corners, ridiculous. Elite season for these cornerbacks. Xavier Howard was a playmaker. He's also kind of a lockdown corner as well. But yeah, he was a dominant playmaker back there, and he was kind of like that. He was a draft hit of mine out of Baylor. I loved him out of Baylor. Not too many people were talking about him, so I'm excited to see him playing so well. Didn't really get to see a whole bunch of him last year, and I was predicting him to be the top 3 corners of football last year. So a year later, he ends up being that, obviously. So yeah, ridiculous season. The Dolphins defense won them so many games, and mainly because getting those turnovers. There were more defense that were more locked down. They're going to hold teams to under 80 yards rushing and X amount of passing yards. The Dolphins are going to go out there and take the ball away and change the game, and it started with Xavier Howard there. So he comes in at number 6. Number 5 is going to be Josh Allen with the crazy improvement this year. So maybe we didn't really predict him to be top 5. Maybe not really close to there, even though I have liked Josh Allen there. Coming out of Wyoming, but he's further along than he was supposed to be. We knew the talent, we knew the traits that he had. He didn't really need to develop traits. He just needed better talent level on his team and some time to, just keep himself under control and learn the game. And it came earlier than expected, so it's pretty damn ridiculous. And I'm pretty hyped about the future with that, especially him and Stefon Diggs, that offense. So he comes in at number 5. He started the year like a top 5 guy, and then he went a little, I don't want to say cold because he was still playing solid, but he went a little cold there for a little bit, but then got even better. It was ridiculous there. So excited to see what he's got, because he could still get better. Could put a complete season, maybe an MVP, maybe a number 1 player season together, possibly win a Super Bowl. So I'm really excited about that. He comes in at 5 though. I actually got Aaron Donald at 4. He won Defensive Player of the Year. Definitely deserving. A lot of these guys would be deserving, even down to TJ Watt. They're that good. Some of those corners, like I said. Aaron Donald didn't really do anything, he had a ridiculous season facing all those double teams, beating them, stopping the run, getting that quarterback pressure. But for what Aaron Donald normally does, he wasn't anything, out there crazy. And I guess that's how good he is. But hey, I had an extremely productive season. The game plan's all for him. He's going to open things up for pretty much everyone else. We see Dante Fowler down at the edge last year. He goes. He struggles. Leonard Floyd comes in, who's been really struggling. He dominates. I think Aaron Donald's a big piece of that. So he kind of creates for his teammate. He disrupts in the backfield, whether it's run or getting after the quarterback. He's a dominant football player. He can definitely, he's definitely the best defensive player in general, going into any year, maybe the best player in football. I got him at number 4 based off 2020 through 2021. It was unfortunate that he was playing somewhat injured there, specifically in the playoff games there, especially against the Packers. 3, my defensive player of the year was Jaylen Ramsey. So we're sticking with the same team here, the Rams. My defensive player of the year, that was Jaylen Ramsey. Like I said, I've been hyping up these corners, the way they played in today's era. Absolutely ridiculous. I base everything off what I watch, and I really enjoyed watching Jaylen Ramsey. This was the Jaylen Ramsey we expected. I don't value corners too high in the draft usually, unless they're blatantly elite, obviously elite. They're going to be dominant because they're so hit or miss, and they don't make it that much of an impact right away. But Jaylen Ramsey, let's say I knew, but I think we all knew he was going to be that good, and he's playing like that guy we expected. Absolutely locked down, going against the best receivers every week. If there's a jump ball in the area, he's not going to let it happen. He really, what barely splits up Ramsey, Alexander, Howard, those guys are so close, so dominant, so even. I really liked the way Ramsey came up and played the run or any short, underneath passes in front of him that weren't even maybe his guys, reacting to play, passes that weren't his, but coming up and laying the wood, tackling, and he really stood out to that. So if you're looking for something to barely split, to me, he stood out just watching. I don't know the tackling efficiency numbers. I'm not a big numbers guy, even though production definitely matters, but yeah, the production, ridiculous season. And you look at the Rams. They're always a pretty good defense. It's because, maybe the best in football, Aaron Donald. and had some good coaches and they've had some good pieces. Why did the Rams take that big step up? They were the best defensive football this year, in an offensive era. I think having Jaylen Ramsey full season and kind of in his mode, in his zone there, playing for, his team where he's happy to be and to be there long term, I think that really shifted it. Because teams had to throw to one other side of the field. They had to worry about Aaron Donald. They had to throw to a completely different side of the field. And other guys got to feast on that because they were expecting it. Ramsey's on an island all by himself on one side, creating for the rest of the side, creating for this entire defense, helping it, assisting it to get to number one defense, a dominant, elite defense on the season. And I don't throw elite out there. Last year I thought the Niners were the best defense, but I wasn't really even calling them elite. They were kind of borderline. So I don't really throw that out there like everyone else. So I thought Ramsey was a big piece of that. So that is those reasons. And again, how hard is to play corner in today's era? Those are the reasons I had Ramsey as my defensive player of the year. Most people go Aaron Donald. I think he's deserving. I think other corners, TJ Watt, those guys are deserving. Devin White was the best player I thought in all of football in the playoffs and postseason. Now to the top two quarterbacks. You guys know who they are. I got Patrick Mahomes at number 2. I tell you what, if he would have finished it off and won a Super Bowl, especially with that offensive line, he'd probably be number 1. I do think in general, this is based on 2020, 2021. I do think in general, if you're asking me who's the best player in all of football, if you had to choose one guy, there's definitely guys that are deserving of that, and they're definitely can be at any given time, obviously. But I would go Mahomes. I think Mahomes is the best player in football. Ridiculous talent. And does he still have upside? That's kind of the crazy thing to think about. And he kind of does, because I think last year he started, learning defenses, changing the play out line and adjusting based on coverages. I noticed a lot. So another ridiculous season for him. It wasn't, I guess, kind of like Aaron Donald. It wasn't kind of like mind-blowing stuff because we kind of already seen it, but that just shows how good he is. So, the Chiefs are going to be contenders every year because this guy right here. And he had, statistically his worst game ever, but if you watch in the Super Bowl, but you watch it, he actually played. It will never show, especially in the box score, but he actually played a ridiculous game. Some of these throws he was making that should have been caught, nobody else can make. Nobody can make those throws. Nobody. Maybe ever. So he's at 2, and number 1 is going to be the MVP, Aaron Rodgers. So regular season number 1 stays as the final everything for this season. Number 1 for me. Came up a little bit short there, obviously, to the Super Bowl champions and the Bucs. But yeah, a dominant season there for Aaron Rodgers. Look at last year. I think they got to where they got to last year because of their defense, and then maybe their running game on offense. And Rodgers made the big time plays when he needed to, but it was a little underwhelming. A lot of throwing the ball away, a little underwhelming. You expect greatness, and he was probably close to great, but. And then this year, it just felt like he got better. And for a guy to do that, it's just another one of those things that kind of like, you just got to respect it. Like it's like, how does, only greatness can get better at that age. Coming off a year, you just went to the NFC Championship game. So, and, every time you watch him, the knowledge just shows, how he adjusts plays and knowing exactly where he needs to go and how fast he makes these plays. And, that's kind of the things that stand out most. But how accurate, he is throwing the ball downfield when he needs that big play. He's going to get it. He's going to get it. And still being able to roll out, throw on the run as good as anybody. Not only pretty much in terms of the receiving core, only having Davante Adams, Robert Tonyan. He's making guys great, though. Robert Tonyan. Valdes-Scantling came up clutch downfield. Lazard. These guys are, I don't want to take anything away from those guys. They're solid options, but he's making guys go from, guys that probably wouldn't be getting much time on some other teams with other great quarterbacks to legit players. So, I think for those reasons, I think that was why he's number 1. I think he was rightfully the MVP. Even though a lot of these guys are deserving. I don't like when people say, this guy wasn't deserving because this guy should have won it. But I think there could be multiple guys deserving. That's how I look at it. So I do think a lot of these guys played that well to be an MVP. I think we just went with Rodgers for the reasons I explained, I guess. But yeah, he ends up at number 1. I do this every single year. We had the fans do one in the offseason kind of going into this season, so maybe we can do that later in the offseason going into next season. But yeah, really excited to cover the NFL this offseason, whether it's free agency, the draft. We already have a bunch of those videos on the channel. everything you can think of, and there's a lot more coming out. When free agency hits, every single signing, we grade every single one. And then we really get in the draft. Then we live stream day one of the draft. Everything here, we got you. All the content in the world for the NFL. So please subscribe, join us for all that. Turn notifications on. Smash that like button. Check out that Twitter. That Twitter is an absolute must follow. Any news that breaks, anything we're talking about, ends up there first, then on the YouTube channel. So check that out. Link in the description and comments for anything that you need. That is going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.